Every crime, every healing, every sharing, every love, every success, it's all accounted for. Everything we do, all the time, privately and publicly, is being constantly uploaded into the universal hard drive. Now, as explored in the last Roamcast, we are not necessarily occupied with the good and evil of this stuff. That's low-level thought that doesn't really exist. But we are using these things as weights and measures in order to understand balance. What better way to do that than record everything that is done in the course of our journey and have that fairly reflect our progress? Like in a university or a school where 100% of the final qualification is actually derived from day-to-day coursework. There is no final exam. You don't have to sit down at a piece of paper and try and remember everything over the last year or 3 years or 7 years. There's none of that nonsense. No final repentances or conversions or anything like that. You can't just live in the wrongness for your whole life. And then right at the end of it say, Father, please forgive me. I confess my sins and hand over my soul to Jesus Christ, our Saviour. That doesn't work. That does not work. I have a feeling that the Creator finds that shit amusing. Those who set great store in such things have got a big surprise just around the corner from exiting the flesh. The final reckoning of one's life is calculated from every moment from the womb to the tomb. Every single second is important, I think. You can't go back and delete stuff or disregard it or edit it. Everything is set in the stone of our own journey. Wonderfully so. And as soon as we see this as something that is to our tremendous advantage, then we begin to glide forwards in life. We see that our sinning, our imbalance, and the old tattoos of unwise conduct are markers for growth, battle scars of our spiritual adventure. Nothing to be ashamed of, because they show how far we've come. We keep moving deeper and further and truer and lighter and purer until the device of cause and effect, of the third density of karma, balancing the constant aceness and crapness of life, all of that stuff is no longer needed. This is transcendence. Maybe because my family are getting older, my mother and father and grandfather, even though they're a long way away at the moment, maybe because they're getting older, I'm noticing old people more. And I'm noticing that particular part of their life cycle, the twilight part of it all. So, in that vein, I saw an old man last week. He was sat on his own at this little table in a modest restaurant, or really a cafe just outside of town. And I would say that this man was about 80 something, 85, 84, I don't know, something like that. A good man, a gentleman, a gentle human being, and you could feel it a mile off, this goodness and gentleness. And you know, he wore these blue jeans and a soft cotton checked shirt, a dark blue jacket, and he had these little white, brilliant white Adidas running shoes on. Old people wear sensible, comfortable, practical footwear like that, don't they? I've seen a lot of old people doing that kind of thing. I think it helps them keep more sure-footed as well as being comfortable. So the guy was well turned out in this stuff, and he was clean and smart and had a short, neat haircut, an old watch, and he had I noticed 2 pens in his top pocket, a blue one and a red one. And on the table he had an old cell phone, you know, a little tiny square one that pops open with buttons on it, you know. And he looked at it once. And he was just an innately a lovely man. Any of you, had you been there with me, would have felt the same, I'm sure of it. And he was kind of delicate and slow, definitely old. But as I say, a gentleman. And all this somehow made him just very, very delightful to me, and it really cut through what I was thinking and doing and what mode I was in. It just totally stopped all of that, and it just silenced me, silenced my thought, and said, look at this. This is someone near the end. I observed him. I saw the empty packaging from his burger and fries and his cup of coffee that he'd already finished, and he was eating, after his meal, he was eating ice cream from a little cardboard carton with one of those little beige coloured plastic spoons. And I saw this man. I saw his life. I felt his years of living, of love and loss, and of sadness and happiness and war and peace. And I felt his life force, his narrative and his accumulation of wisdom, all through his infancy, his youth, his maturity, and now into his old age. His entire existence as a beautiful human being was sat there right in front of me. And the deeper I looked at this, the deeper it touched me. So much so, I have to say, that it literally brought me to tears. Just from this incredible human journey that was present there in front of me, in that man. And this kind of thing hasn't happened to me before, not with strangers. But here on this day, it did. And this man's years shone out from behind his cloudy, quiet eyes. And I do have a modest psychic ability, a capacity to see into a thing beyond its surface. But with sentient beings, I never use this without their consent, except in emergencies. So the precise details of this guy's life were as unknown to me as anyone else. A blank. And yet, I absolutely felt the resonance of his experiences, his real acquaintance with life. The core patterns, really, in the end, are the same for all of us, and perhaps he was from my tribe, doing and thinking and feeling a bit like me. Maybe that's why his presence in the room made such an impression on me. I knew him. And when that emotional response welled up inside me, when the tears came, I chose to let go of my self-control and all the normal social protocols just for a moment, and just allowed myself to feel completely. And before long he got up, cleared his tray into the trash and walked out to his car, a large maroon SUV as it happened. And he slowly reversed, straightened up, and then carefully drove off into the world, back to his home. Maybe to a life alone, maybe with a loving wife. Who knows? But off he went. And this made me think about recognizing and appreciating the journeys of those who do not choose a path of conscious spiritual unfoldment. Those who do not want to know for themselves, go their own way, grasp their own sovereignty and such. Because this man was like that. He was not a spiritual man. He was not awake, as we might think of it. He probably went along with a lot of party lines and voted appropriately and believed what he was told by the government. I felt that, and it's totally okay. Most people never get outside of that. So this gentle old man eating his ice cream was not somebody on the path. He was just a normal man. But what he was doing was as incredible as what Christ did, or Buddha, or Bob Marley, or Gandhi, or Lennon, or Elvis Presley, or me, or you. You know? These figures are all doing the same thing. To learn, we need only live. To be wise, we need only take note. To be truly awakened, we need only transform inch by inch from one year to the next. It is impossible not to do these things. And those who choose to walk the path of truth, who unfold their sacredness in the most meaningful ways imaginable, they differentiate themselves only by their velocity. They move faster and further in a shorter amount of time, and that is all. Every journey has meaning, even the modest, slow-moving journeys. All journeys are valuable and good and successful in the end. Anyone who has ever been interested in watches, wristwatches, clocks, and so on, may have come across the term complication. And this is a horological term, which has a further meaning from its normal sort of plain English definition. And a complication is basically any feature that is not strictly related to the basic business of displaying the hours, minutes, and seconds. So normally with a simple movement you have the face, the numbers marked around the face, and the hours, minutes, and second hands, right? And that's it. Tells the time. If we were to add another little dial to that face, say a stopwatch or something, then that would be referred to as a complication. And there are all sorts of complications on watches these days, you may have noticed. And simple ones, but, all kinds of stuff. Like date and day of the week, month, alarm, additional time zones, moon phases, sunset and sunrise times, repeaters for different intervals of 30 seconds or a minute or 15 minutes, perpetual calendars, all kinds of things. And they're complications. They are called complications. And you see watches out there, both expensive and inexpensive, with a great profusion of complications. It's become fashionable. The watch face is full of them, very busy. And with some of them where there are multiple sets of detailed and ornate complications all embedded into the watch face, you actually can't tell the time. You can't see it. There's just too much other stuff going on, right? Or should I say that it is difficult to tell the time with a passing glance. If your watch has lots of complications, then you sort of have to learn to edit them out when you look at it, and as you become accustomed to it, then you can look beyond them in order to make out the markings around the circumference of the watch, right? But in a dark cafe or pub or something, or outside in the evening, or just quickly looking at your watch while you're driving, it's positively difficult to read with many complications. You can't tell the time. I was looking into a watch store window the other day in town, examining some of these timepieces. Some of them are amazingly beautiful. But I didn't see many beautiful ones with lots of complications. The really stunning watches had either just a few or none at all. Though, of course, it's all a matter of personal taste, isn't it? But in terms of the presence of complications, it occurred to me that the way we choose to arrange our lives is just like that. How many complications do we find manageable or acceptable in our lives? do we realise that that is our decision